able to access Prince's vault after his death in 2016. His own three-tone-on-doors combination had slipped his mind. Lawyers watched as a trained safe cracker drilled through solid steel for hours. Everything changed when they discovered what was within. 8,000 tracks no one had heard. Recordings from 1973 and stacks of gold bars valued at hundreds of thousands. However, that wasn't the most peculiar aspect. His closest pals were unaware of the revelations the vault held regarding his last days. Some claim it clarified why he passed away in that elevator by himself. On June 7, 1958, Prince Rogers Nelson was born into a chaotic and musically spirited household. He got his stage name from his father, a jazz pianist who went by the name Prince Rogers. However, their Minneapolis house was anything but tranquil. Torn between personal struggles and musical aspirations, Prince's parents were in a constant state of conflict. The marriage had fallen apart by the time Prince was 10 years old. He never truly felt safe in either of the two damaged homes he was left hopping between. He carried that early instability with him. He developed an intense need for control and a fierce desire to succeed as a result. He listened, observed, and took in everything. It was more than just background music. Life continued to pound him, but it became his retreat. Prince began experiencing epileptic seizures when he was 7 years old. In those days, nobody, especially children, truly understood what epilepsy was. His peers made fun of him, imitated his mannerisms, and called him derogatory names in school. It was unkind. He lost his sense of normalcy with each episode. He began to conceal not only the seizures but also who he really was. He had surrounded himself with a wall of flamboyance and mystery by the time he was a teenager. He previously declared that he wanted to be as loud and showy as possible to avoid ever being perceived as weak again. When he was 14, the convulsions unexpectedly stopped, but the mental wounds were severe. His mother's second marriage made matters worse. Prince and Hayward Baker, his new stepfather, did not get along. The man had no taste for music, and Prince's fixation on it was clearly beyond his comprehension. Prince did something crazy then. He fled. He was only 10 years of age. He first attempted to live with his father. That was short-lived. After that, there was a period of couch surfing during which friends and family alternated. He spent some time with the Andersons, a family down the street that recognized something unique in him. It was a pivotal moment, and although Prince experienced some stability at last, the months of uncertainty had a lasting impact. That's when he made his decision. He would never again rely on anyone. Prince never had a casual connection with music. He was already learning the piano on his own by the age of 7. He would sit at the keyboard and play as his parents quarreled in the adjacent room. Again, without official instruction, he added drums and guitar at the age of 14. At the age of 7, he composed his first song, a small funk tune he named Funk Machine. He wasn't playing around though, he was learning. He would write out the lyrics of albums by artists like Aretha Franklin and James Brown and spend whole hours listening to them, trying to replicate every sound. He played till his fingers were raw, skipped meals and skipped sleep. It was more than simply passion. Obsession was the cause. He and his friend Andre Anderson started a band when he was 14. Grand Central was the name given to it. Prince was more than simply the guitarist anyway. He was in charge. He chose the band's appearance and sound, composed the songs, and put them in order. Their covers weren't your usual teen fare. They were creating what would become known as Minneapolis funk. Even at that time, Prince's theatrical presence was explosive. At 16, he left school. Prince already knew what he was doing, but his family was in a frenzy. Songs he had written would appear on his debut album. Prince was planning how to dominate the music industry when other teenagers were preoccupied with relationships or examinations. Then it really did happen in 1977. Warner Brothers signed him to a $1 million record deal when he was just 18 years old. At the time, it was the largest contract ever offered to a new artist. Furthermore, money wasn't the only factor. Prince was given complete creative power by Warner Brothers, something they had never done for someone so unknown and young. Even his publication rights were retained. The test was run by the label. Before they made their decision, they saw him at work in the studio. It was a huge risk, and one executive just replied, "We believe you." Prince, however, was not requesting authorization. He was calling for authority. His first album, You, was a failure when it was released on April 7, 1978. It sold only 150,000 copies and reached a peak of only 163 on the Billboard 200. Warner had already over their budget for recording. Prince produced it himself and performed all 27 of the instruments on the album. However, there was no buzz, no tour, and no band prepared to back him up. While Warner executives claimed he wasn't polished enough when he eventually gave a live performance in early 1979, he almost lost everything because of the failure. It was over if his next release failed. I Want to Be Your Lover followed. While Warner was released in August 1979, it topped the R&B charts and peaked at number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100. Suddenly everything was different. It was Prince's first #1 soul song. He was just 21. Although it was catchy, smooth, and groovy, the song was still his. He wrote it because he had a genuine crush on Patrice Rushen, a vocalist. Due to the popularity, Prince's second album peaked at number 3 on the R&B chart and number 22 on the Billboard 200. Within 4 months it reached platinum status. Warner Brothers had been skeptical of him, but suddenly they realized his potential. The shockwave followed. The world wasn't prepared for Prince's 1980 release of Dirty Mind. The record was unabashedly sexual, raw, and daring. Oral sex, incest, and other taboo subjects that most musicians wouldn't even discuss were discussed in songs like Head and Sister. Prince didn't care that some radio stations outright banned it. He was jeered when he left the stage after opening for the Rolling Stones while sporting high heels and bikini underwear. He resisted more forcefully. The sexual lyrics, his androgynous appearance, and the nudity on his record covers were all components of a bigger scheme. He aimed to simultaneously astonish, entice, and rule the pop world. Prince smashed through the gates of MTV. Not simply breaking in, MTV was known for mostly featuring white rock performers in the early 1980s. Michael Jackson followed shortly after Prince. He was only the second black artist to be shown on the network on a regular basis, with 1999 and Little Red Corvette on high rotation. That was innovative at the time, but it may seem straightforward now. Someone like him had never received that level of attention from MTV. Ironically, a Corvette wasn't even the inspiration for Little Red Corvette. It was a pink Mercury that belonged to Lisa Coleman, his bandmate. The first few lines of the song were in his head when he woke up, as if he had fallen asleep in it. History was made in that odd little moment. The largely white audience of MTV was unaware of what was about to happen. Prince didn't simply show up, he blew up. The door would be blown off its hinges by Purple Rain. Purple Rain didn't begin at the top when it was released on June 25, 1984. At number 11 it made its debut in the Billboard 200. However, by August 4 it had risen to the top and remained there for an incredible 24 weeks in a row. That's 6 months of complete control. Every week more than 300,000 copies of the CD were sold. It sold around 9 million copies in the US alone by the end of the year. With 3 million worldwide, most musicians would be content. At home alone, Prince had increased that. Over 25 million copies of Purple Rain were sold worldwide. It received a 13x platinum certification in the US. To add to the drama, he continued to trade Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen for the top place. In 1984 and 1985, such rivalry kept the charts churning. In the end, Purple Rain spent 122 weeks on the Billboard 200. It's more than 2 years. It wasn't merely a success. It was a phenomena. And the music wasn't the end of it. Prince accomplished something that had previously only been accomplished by Elvis and the Beatles that same summer. At the same time, he dominated all of the main entertainment categories. The Triple Crown is the #1 movie, album, and single. On July 27, 1984, the film Purple Rain was released. The album became the #1 album a week later. It was a well-planned attack. When Dove's Cry was dominating the singles chart, it was the year's best-selling single and remained at the top for 5 weeks. The picture was a low-budget movie with unknown actors, but its $70 million box office receipts startled Hollywood. Prince was just 26. He simultaneously became a legend in 3 different businesses in a matter of months. His soundtrack enhanced the movie. The album was enhanced by the movie. It was an unbreakable momentum loop. Awards season then arrived. Prince accepted the Academy Award for Best Original Song Score on March 25, 1985, while wearing a purple cape. His speech was brief and bizarre. Standing behind Wendy Melvoin and Lisa Coleman, he remarked, "Very unbelievable." He faced off against country great Christopherson, who founded the Muppets. Prince prevailed though. He also swept the Grammys on February 26, a month earlier. For creating Chuck Khan's I Feel For You, he was awarded Best Rhythm and Blues Song, Best Rock Performance by a Pair or Group with Vocals, and Best Album of Original Music. 37 million people saw his Baby I'm a Star Grammy performance. The music industry was forced to embrace him as a force of nature as well as a performer. He was more than a music star now. He was a phenomenon. His empire expanded along with his notoriety. Prince started building Paisley Park, his ideal project, in January 1986. A 65,000 square foot, $10 million creative center located in Chanhassen, Minnesota. It featured a basketball court, 4 recording studios, a complete sound stage, video editing rooms, rehearsal spaces, and even subterranean parking. Beyond just a studio, it was more. It was a world. Making music wasn't his only goal. He desired to be in charge of everything. Professionals from Los Angeles designed the acoustics. There were no windows in the downstairs. Prince was not interested in knowing whether it was day or night. He desired to blend in with the work. In order to store master recordings that no one else could access, he even had a hidden vault constructed inside. The structure became his stronghold and was called after his song Paisley Park from 1985. However, things weren't normal inside that fortress. One of Prince's rules frightened his employees. Nobody was permitted to meet his eyes. You were dismissed right away if you did. Liz Frey, a graphic designer, remembered that workers had to call him boss and always avoid making eye contact. A crew member was dismissed for merely looking at him. The rule had not even been explained to the man. Prince caught the attention of a video editor, another employee, during a meeting. It was instinct. Prince got to his feet and left. Within an hour, the editor was gone. These were not isolated occurrences, they were widespread. It was a genuine worry. Prince demanded more than just deference. He was demanding excellence, and he occasionally got it by using fear. Michael B. Nelson, a trombonist, performed with Prince in 1993 while they were on tour. He failed to hit a high note. Prince went up to him the following day. Nelson answered, "You're going to play that solo right tonight." "I'll try my best." Prince remarked, "Well, you gave it your all last night," and turned to go. Prince approached Nelson that evening as he was getting ready for his solo and aimed a golden gun-shaped microphone directly at his head. It wasn't a joke. It was dangerous. Nelson performed the solo flawlessly. He later said that Prince pushed the band by inciting fear. It left scars, but sometimes it worked. A videotape marked the beginning of Prince and Maddie Garcia's romance. She was a 16-year-old German professional belly dancer. Prince's band received a performance tape from her mother. Prince invited her backstage in Barcelona within 10 minutes of her viewing it. His age was 32. Garcia subsequently remarked that although the meeting lasted only 40 seconds, it seemed as though time had frozen. People were astonished by the age difference. But according to Garcia, she wasn't your average adolescent. She was already handling business gatherings. Because she was too young to accompany Prince on his tour, her father granted Prince formal guardianship. She was able to accompany him on his journey. Garcia maintained that at the time they did not share a bed. He was too wise and decent to take advantage of it, but he never denied that the occasional impure thought crossed his mind, she wrote. It wasn't until she was 19 that the romance aspect began. At that point, Prince asked her to start taking birth control and said, "I think it's time." They had a son 3 years later. He weighed 7 pounds 12 ounces when he was born on October 16, 1996.
The world just knew him as Boy Gregory, but they called him Amir Gregory Nelson. He has an uncommon disease called Pfeiffer syndrome type 2. It is present in only 1 out of every 100,000 newborns. It resulted in significant bone and skull abnormalities. When Mehdi began bleeding throughout the pregnancy, physicians advised testing, but Prince refused. A miscarriage was not something he wanted to risk. The infant may have dwarfism, they were warned. That was fine with them. The actual event was what they were unprepared for. Prince briefly displayed joy upon the baby's birth. Then he felt a wave of fear. The baby let out a gasp. His eyelids were absent. His eyes were open and dry. He was only alive for 6 days. Around this time, Prince talked to Oprah, but he didn't say if the baby had been born or not. According to reports, the hospital's records were changed. They didn't want the whole truth to be known. They were torn apart by the anguish. The marriage ended in 2000. Mehdi was not the only lady associated with Prince, though. His romantic life made headlines all the time. He had a brief relationship with Madonna in 1985. She quickly left him for Sean Penn after they collaborated on the song Love Song. In 1989, Kim Basinger followed. She was filming Batman. The soundtrack was being worked on by Prince. The Scandalous Sex Suite is the song they recorded. There were moans in it. They were allegedly caught on camera having sex. Sheila E., whom Prince also dated, stated that they were engaged in the 1980s. So he named her Carmen Electra. Tara Lee Patrick was her true name. She was found by Prince, who also developed her stage persona. He repeatedly combined mentoring and romance. Many of these women eventually appeared alongside him on stage or in his songs. Prince got married once more in 2001, this time to Manuela Teslini. She was 24 years old. Prince was 43. She was employed at his non-profit. Although they shared a home in Toronto, their private lives weren't peaceful. Prince grossed $42 million in 2004 alone. According to Testellini, she was the focus of the majority of his album Musicology. That was an exaggeration, according to Prince. Everyone was startled by the details of their 2007 divorce. Testellini requested spousal support of $42,000 per month. She desired private films, pictures, and jewelry. Prince threw added cars and property and offered $10,000 a month. Their lavish lifestyle included private jets, $5,000 stylists, and $50,000 after parties. She claimed that Prince even cut her off financially and locked her out of their house. Prince occasionally appeared in court on his own behalf. He merely stated, "This is my normal life." However, not all ex-partners depart in silence. In 2003, Charlene Friends filed a lawsuit against Prince. According to her, they started dating when she was 18. Prince was 32. She asserted that having intercourse with him made you one with him and that he thought he was the Messiah. She claimed he had videotaped them without her permission, threatened to murder her, had rooms in his house with whips, shackles, and cages, forced her to wear his clothes, and prevented her from even looking at his staff. She claimed to have experienced sadness and panic attacks. It was all deemed untrue by Prince's crew. Prince fought more than just romantic wars. He appeared with the word slave written on his face in 1993. Both his name and his music were under Warner Brothers ownership. Prince desired to leave. He made songs, but they wouldn't allow him release it as quickly. He retaliated by fighting back. His face was painted. He yelled the label. He claimed that while he was stuck, they sold his music and registered his name as a trademark. It had nothing to do with money. It was about ownership, particularly for artists of color. His goal was to create something that would endure beyond his lifetime. He went one step farther on his 35th birthday that year. He eliminated the name Prince and substituted a symbol. Not just any symbol, though. It was a combination of male and female signals, the symbol of love. Reporters were unable to express it. Warner was unable to promote him. In order to use the sign in print, his team even delivered specially made floppy disks to the press. Nobody was able to pronounce it correctly. He changed his name from Prince to Prince. Now his disobedience was brought up whenever he was mentioned. He eventually broke free in 1996. He handed the Chaos and Disorder album to Warner and turned to go. He was only permitted to release one record annually despite the label promising him $100 million for 6. In that period, Prince could produce 3 albums. He began putting out music through NPG Records after he was free. He also packaged albums with newspapers and sold them with concert tickets. He was among the first to offer music for sale online. More than 300 tracks from 23 of those albums were finally made available on streaming services in 2018. Prince's passion permeated every aspect of his existence. He experienced exhilaration and what he described as a spiritual breakdown in 1987, shortly before the Black Album was released. The record, in his opinion, was evil. He dubbed it Blue Tuesday. A week prior to the album's release, he decided to scrap it. Rather, he produced Love Sexy, a concept album about fending off evil. It was not until 1994 that the Black Album was formally released. His legal actions were equally audacious. He filed a $22 million lawsuit against 22 fans in 2014. Why? Since they posted videos of his concerts. There were 363 bootleg links on one Facebook page. "We love Prince, but the message was clear. Don't mess with his music," the fans said. A few weeks later, he dropped the case and his team claimed that the fans had removed the videos. The damage was done, leaving fans in shock and feeling deceived. Prince also caused controversy in unexpected places such as basketball. He paid $95,000 a month to rent NBA player Carlos Boozer's Beverly Hills mansion in 2005, but when Boozer returned, the house had changed. Prince's symbol was now on the gates. Purple water ran down the front path. His pictures covered the walls. Boozer's gym had been converted into a nightclub and one bedroom had been converted into a massage room. This was not the only time Prince converted rental homes into beauty salons. Wherever he stayed, he'd set up mirrors, styling stations, and purple decor. Boozer was incensed, but Prince calmed him down by writing him a $1 million check to fix everything. Boozer later remarked, "This little man is cool as hell." In any case, he paid whatever price to surround himself with his vision. Prince was known for his mystery, but in his last days that mystery turned into a wall concealing a much darker truth. His team said he was fighting the flu. Some said it was about vanity, while others thought it was about staying stage ready. Insiders knew it was a lie, however, because Prince was not battling a virus, but rather excruciating pain in his hands that made it difficult for him to play. On April 7, 2016, 2 shows in Atlanta were canceled, and behind the scenes he was attempting to stop using opioids with the assistance of Dr. Michael Schulenberg, a Minnesota physician who consented to treat him discreetly. His hips and knees were severely damaged by all those leaps off risers and high heels, so he eventually replaced his signature boots with custom platform shoes and carried a cane. The medicines were nothing new, they were his hidden protection against years of stage injuries. A week later, on April 15th, Prince's private jet was cruising at 42,000 feet when the unthinkable occurred. The pilot radioed in at 12 a.m. saying, "Chicago, send us an ambulance." The pilot discovered that Prince was the unresponsive passenger. The jet dropped almost 45,000 feet in just 17 minutes and at 1:17 a.m. it made an emergency landing in Mullen, Illinois. His close friend Judith Hill was with him and she watched as his eyes went blank in the middle of a conversation. His bodyguard Kirk Johnson carried him off the plane after he collapsed in his seat. EMTs worked on him for almost 20 minutes and Hill believed he was dead. Prince later acknowledged that he had mixed 2 different pills that night, a new combination, and it almost killed him. He was only 48 minutes from home. He was told that a private room was not available, so he left the hospital after only 3 hours, despite the fact that the doctors had just given him a life-saving shot. The very next day, he threw a dance party at Paisley Park where he displayed a metallic purple guitar and played chopsticks on his new purple piano. Admission was only $10. The strangest part of all was when he told the crowd, "Wait a few days before you waste your prayers on me." 5 days later, he was dead. That same weekend, journalist Tamron Hall sent him a video of a restaurant playing one of his songs. Fans could tell something was wrong though, as one of them, Nancy Anderson, claimed he looked past weak and frail and struggled just to walk to the piano. She later said the message felt urgent, like he was reaching out for help without saying it directly, and she didn't know she'd be among the last people to ever speak with him. Prince responded promptly, telling her he was fine and inviting her to see his new piano. On April 20th, Prince's team called addiction specialist Dr. They pleaded with Howard Kornfeld in California, but Kornfeld was unable to come immediately, so he sent his son Andrew on a red-eye flight to Minnesota with buprenorphine, a medication used to treat opioid addiction. Around 8 p.m. that same night, Prince was dropped off at Paisley Park by someone without any staff or security, leaving him alone. The following morning, no one was able to get in touch with him. His staff discovered him unconscious in the elevator at around 9:30 a.m. The 911 call was straightforward: "Yeah, we need an ambulance right now. The person is dead here." Paramedics came at 9:43 a.m. and declared him dead at 10:07 a.m. He was 57 years old, 5'3" and tall, and weighed only 112 pounds. The autopsy verified the image captured on surveillance the previous evening, which showed him in all-black gaunt entering a clinic with Kirk Johnson. Prince had died from an overdose of fentanyl, a potent synthetic opioid that was probably taken without his knowledge, and his bodyguard had texted Dr. Schulenberg a few days prior to request fluids. Just hours before Prince's death, surveillance footage showed Kirk picking up medications at Walgreens which were prescribed under Kirk's name but were for Prince. Schulenberg was fined $30,000 for this, and Prince's family later sued several medical professionals, alleging they could have saved Prince's life. They opened the vault after his death, but it wasn't just any vault, it was a bank-grade vault in the basement of Paisley Park, and nobody, not even Prince, knew the combination because he had forgotten it. The estate then brought in a professional safecracker named Dave McConey, who micro-drilled through the 3-ton door while agents, lawyers, and cameras watched. He started by playing a game of words with friends on his phone. The vault, which was more than just a room, was a time capsule of one of the most prolific artists in history. It contained over 8,000 unreleased songs and recordings from 1973 to 2015, enough for 100 albums. The final known track was called Soul Patch. Prince had not only built a musical empire but also a financial one, with his businesses holding millions of dollars in cash, luxury cars, rare jewelry, and designer furniture, but no one knew about the gold. Then came the gold bars, 67 of them, each weighing 10 ounces and valued at $193 per ounce in 2017. His music continued after his death, with the estate releasing Forever in 2016 with 40 tracks, including the Lonely-aided tune Moonbeam Levels. The following year, the deluxe edition of Purple Rain peaked at number 4 in the US and number 7 in the UK. That was pure art, private, exact, and always one step ahead. With 8,000 songs still unreleased, the math is astounding. One song a day would last more than 20 years. In 2021, they released Welcome to America, an entire album that Prince had recorded in 2010 but never released, addressing racism, disinformation, and America's future years before those issues existed.